You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Tuesday, November 10th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to the show. So glad you could join us today for the next 2 hours of news, interviews, analysis, and opinion by, for, and about the marijuana law reform community. We're here every weekday on CannabisRadio.com at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And a lot of folks are following me over from my past 3 years at 420 Radio, the public radio network that I've created. Just a quick update, it's not going away. 420 Radio will still exist. It will still run great podcasts from all over the nation of volunteer activist reformers, and also the great music shows and music that you've come to enjoy, as well as little features of my own from my archives, various interviews and so forth. But my live show and the replays of my show will soon only be available on CannabisRadio.com. That'll be at the top of the year. So we're going to simulcast here, kind of do them side by side for the rest of this year to give you a chance to switch the URLs, get the new bookmarks, the links, everything you need to keep following the Russ Belville Show, because we appreciate your support. I tell you, it gets lonely sometimes working in the studio, and especially when I take a stand or an opinion that's not always the most popular, but knowing you guys are out there listening and supporting makes all the difference in the world. Also, quick update for you live listeners, no live show tomorrow because I will be on an airplane on my way to Jamaica, man. Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be great in Jamaica, and we're going to be bringing you live coverage on Thursday and Friday and Monday from Negril, Jamaica, the site of the High Times Cannabis Cup. I'm really excited to be there. They're doing it in conjunction with Rastafari Roots Fest, so we might get to dig real deep into Rastafari culture. Also, 4 hosts from Cannabis Radio will be there. Cal Cushman, Dr. Dina, Nurse Heather, and Rob, all from CannabisRadio.com, will be there. We're going to try to get their shows on live from Jamaica as well. And cross your fingers, live coverage of the wedding of Kyle Cushman. That's right. So we got all sorts of stuff coming up from Jamaica. You'll just have to give me Wednesday off to be able to fly there and get it all set up. Also, stay tuned, hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, the second hour of my show. Our live phone line here is 971-533-7111. It's great in number poker, by the way. 971-533-7111. Because I've got this thing going around. I've gotten some emails, gotten some Facebook posts of a colleague here, a fellow activist in Oregon named Michael Wolf Siegel, who wants to challenge me to a debate over something I said about medical marijuana. And it's always funny to me when people want to challenge me to a debate. You know I've got a live show, right? I got a free phone number you can call and debate me any day of the week between 4 and 5 Pacific. So we'll see if we can make that happen. Coming up on the show today, I'm going to give you my talk that I gave at the Columbus, Ohio Women Grow event 2 days after the Issue 3 loss. In the Radical Rant, we're going to take a look at a tragic story coming out of Ohio that illustrates why I am so serious about legalizing marijuana. Also, we've got some government at work where we're going to, Cannabis Chronicles. Snoop Dogg's going to try to save Live Well there in Colorado. Behind the Headlines takes a look at the Sioux tribe in South Dakota that just burned their marijuana crop. We'll tell you why.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
This is Lori Duckworth, and I'm here with the Hempery, Greta Gaines Company, and you're listening to 420 Radio.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement, he went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. He moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, he stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system, funded by over 1 million contributions, tackling climate change to create clean energy jobs, fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is available exclusively through CannabisRadio.com in partnership with the Associated Press. Now, your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds in the Cannabis Radio News. This is your Cannabis Radio News for Tuesday, November 10th, 2015. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto said Monday he opposes any eventual legalization of marijuana 5 days after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of 4 people who wanted to grow pot for personal use. The Supreme Court ruled Wednesday that growing, possessing, and smoking marijuana for recreation is legal under the right to freedom. At this point, the ruling covers only the plaintiffs in a single case. The ruling did not approve the sale or commercial production of marijuana, nor does it imply a general legalization. But if the court rules the same way on 5 similar petitions, it would then establish the precedent to change the law and allow general recreational use. An October opinion poll by Parametria polling firm said that 77% of Mexicans oppose legalizing marijuana, while only 20% supported the idea. Last week, the acting chief of the Drug Enforcement Administration called medical marijuana a joke during a Q&A with reporters. Now, medical marijuana patients are calling for his head, with an online petition demanding his resignation, attracting over 10,000 signatures on change.org. Quote, "We can have an intellectually honest debate about whether we should legalize something that is bad and dangerous," DEA Chief Chuck Rosenberg said. "But don't call it medicine. That is a joke. It has never been shown to be safe or effective as a medicine." End quote. In an emailed statement, a DEA spokesperson sought to clarify Rosenberg's remark, saying, quote, "To clarify, Acting Administrator Rosenberg indicated that marijuana should be subject to the same levels of approval and scrutiny as any other substance intended for use as a medicine. DEA supports efforts to research potential medical uses of marijuana. His comments reflected the fact that FDA has not approved any medicinal uses for smoked marijuana." End quote. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission has made 3 last-minute updates to rules covering adult marijuana markets. Regarding residency requirements, while the current rule states that an Oregon resident with at least 51% ownership of a company must be the primary applicant for wholesaler, grower, processor, and retailer licenses, the OLCC added language that out-of-state businesses wouldn't get disqualified if they applied, and the Oregon legislature changed the law. Several members of the Joint Marijuana Committee of the Oregon legislature have expressed that they may change the residency requirement as they want to ensure that businesses have the resources they need to succeed. OLCC is also now allowing marijuana deliveries, but no more than $100 worth of marijuana products may be carried, and deliveries may not be made into jurisdictions that have banned retail marijuana outlets. Bud tenders may not have felonies on their records unless it is a marijuana felony more than 2 years old. A Colorado county has achieved the unusual distinction of becoming the first place in the world to offer college scholarships funded entirely by marijuana money. Last week in Colorado's Pueblo County, voters cast their ballot on a number of proposals, with almost all of them, quote, having something to do with marijuana, end quote, according to Time magazine. More remarkable was the fact that more than 60% of voters approved a measure that will phase in an increase in taxes, 5% by 2020, on marijuana growers to fund college scholarships and other community projects. If we were to consider the total marijuana money available to lawmakers, the Colorado ballot measure allows them to spend $66.1 million in taxes collected from the sale of recreational marijuana. According to WTKR, half of the taxes will go towards funding college scholarships in Colorado. This is the first time that any administration in the world will offer college scholarships to its students funded by marijuana money. A Vermilion, Ohio police officer was suspended Monday after he wore a pin on his uniform that expressed support for the legalization of marijuana. Michael Reinheimer said he wore a pin that read, "I support Legalize 2016," on Saturday morning as he took part in an auction of old police and city equipment. Reinheimer said he supports legal marijuana because his wife, Luann, has epilepsy, and her medication doesn't always alleviate her symptoms. He said he's read that marijuana can be effective in preventing seizures, but the police chief says he doesn't have a problem with his advocacy, but by wearing it on his uniform, creating the impression the police push his political beliefs. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Tuesday, November 10th, 2015.
The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabusiness 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com, with years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com. Welcome back. Today in Behind the Headlines, we're going to review a story that we covered yesterday briefly, and that was the literal burning down of the crop being tended by the South Dakota Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe. Of course, this story got my attention after the passage, or I should say the issuing, of the Wilkinson memo. That was the memo from the Department of Justice that answered the question brought up by the Cole memo. The Cole memo, of course, is the one that allows the states to legalize marijuana so long as they follow 8 federal priorities. And not so much as allows as turns a blind eye to or lets happen. Well, the question off the Cole memo then became, what about the Native American tribes? They're sovereign, right? They're more sovereign than the U.S. states. So if you're going to let the states legalize, what if the tribes wanted to legalize? And the Wilkinson memo came out, Department of Indian Affairs, and said, well, yeah, they would be subject to the same provisions as the Cole memo. So if a sovereign Native American tribe wanted to legalize marijuana, they would be allowed to, so long as they don't let it get distributed to kids or have it be used as a cover for trafficking or prevent diversion out of state, yada, yada, yada. And when this came out, I thought this was the hugest development, right? Because the Cole memo, well, that's great if you live in Oregon or California or Massachusetts, right? Because your state's got a pretty damn good chance it's going to legalize marijuana soon. But if you're living in South Dakota or Tennessee or Ohio or Idaho or Wyoming, I mean, it doesn't help you much because you're surrounded by majorities that still support marijuana prohibition. And so when the Wilkinson memo came out, my first thought was, oh my God, can you imagine if the Fort Hall Indian Reservation in southeastern Idaho legalized pot? What a huge tourist trap that would be. You'd get people coming from Montana, from Wyoming, from Utah, from Idaho to enjoy the marijuana, right? And exactly what I predicted happened. The Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe in South Dakota, just south of Sioux Falls, they decided to legalize marijuana. They're a tribe of like 400 tribal members. They decided to legalize marijuana, and they already had a casino. They had a great casino. And they were just going to build this marijuana lounge. It was going to open on New Year's Eve for 1,000 ticket holders. They're going to grow their own marijuana, and they'd already planted it. It's already in the ground. They're going to sell it a gram at a time in the lounge in barcoded packages, and you couldn't get another one until you brought back your last barcoded package, right? It was going to be so controlled. Talk about following the Cole memo, right? Prevent diversion. But now they've burned down their crop because the DEA threatened them with a raid. Well, not so much threatened. They weren't told that a raid was imminent. This is according to CBS News. But that one was possible if the government's concerns weren't addressed. And the main holdup is if a tribe legalizes marijuana on its lands, does that apply to non-tribal members? Well, of course, this would be the sticking point. If you allow the tribe to be able to welcome anyone on their lands to be able to use marijuana, then the prohibition of marijuana is not going to work very well in your state. But what I want to know is, if casino gambling is illegal, but we're letting the tribes run it in these states, how come we don't limit gambling to only the tribal members? Is that the double standard we're going to have now? Oh, sure. Come on in. Bring in your money. Non-Indians, bring in your money. We'll take that. We'll let that happen. But don't let the non-Indians come in and smoke weed. Oh, my goodness. So this is the latest development. The tribe burned down their crop. They said, we would rather burn down the crop than face the possibility of a raid where they would then come in and possibly destroy some of our equipment. Looks like somebody's been listening to my show when I've reported all the smash and grabs that happen, where the DEA comes in and literally just smashes up the place. Busts up cash registers and glass displays and TVs and just bust cameras, busts the place up, and then never file charges on anyone because, that would take money to prosecute. No, they just want to shut down the businesses. They want to make it difficult on people, and that's the same kind of bully tactics the DEA is applying now to the sovereign Indian nations. But they burned down their crop as a show of good faith that they're still willing to work with the feds.
There are times where I've fallen off the wagon.
I'll let the listener determine whether or not it's a wise idea for Native Americans to trust the good faith of the federal government. Let that be a little AP history exercise for y'all. Happy 420, everyone in the Mountain Time Zone. I'm Radical Russ. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
The Russ Belville Show, where we don't change our position on decriminalization in an election year.
Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest-growing business association in the fastest-growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com, and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Mark Twain once said that when there's a gold rush, it's a good time to be in the pick and shovel business. Today, we look at the rapidly evolving markets in the marijuana green rush in our Cannabusiness Chronicles. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Cannabusiness Chronicles. Normally on this segment, I'd be interviewing somebody in the marijuana business, but today I'm going to use this segment to talk about the marijuana business. And you know, coming back from Ohio, one of the things I see building, right? I've long said, watch out, there's going to be a backlash. Watch out, the pendulum will swing back. Everybody's gotten high on the idea of the rapidly rising, opinion polls and all that. And I've always warned, that's good, that's all well and good, but watch out from where the backlash can come. And I think I'm starting to see where the backlash is coming from. And I think it has to do with the corporatization of marijuana. And I think that's where we're going to start to see backlash, not only from the public, but also from within our own community. And the latest story that brings this to mind comes out of the Cannabist in Denver. Leafs by Snoop, the scoop on rapper's new weed brand. Now, I got no problem with Snoop Dogg wanting to have a weed brand, and Willie having Willie's Reserve, and Bob Marley having Marley Naturals, and who else is getting a brand out there? Tommy Chong's got his brands. Of course, it's all great. They're all longtime icons. I like Willie's better because I know Willie's at least put his money where his mouth is with marijuana reform. He's donated to NORML for years, right? Don't know about the rest of them, but they help to move it along with their culture and their art and all that. So no beef there, right? But here's where I got the issue. Snoop Dogg launched his new marijuana line at a private party in Denver last night at the home of John Lord. You're thinking, what, the keyboard player, the late keyboard player? No, not that one. This is the home of LiveWell owner John Lord. LiveWell is one of the largest pot shops and cultivators in Colorado. Remember, because they're vertically integrated out there. And they will be selling Leafs by Snoop exclusively in Colorado for the first 30 days, after which the product will be available wholesale to other shops. So exclusive 30-day preview of Leafs by Snoop at LiveWell. And they're made under the Colorado marijuana license belonging to Beyond Broadway, which does business as LiveWell, and will be growing all the brand's flower and manufacturing its edibles and concentrates. All right, what's the problem with that? Well, does that name LiveWell, does that ring a bell to anyone? Remember my story about the Denver Fair? The Denver County Fair, and they had the people that were handing out edibles, but they weren't activated edibles. They were just, basically chocolate bars because they weren't allowed to display or hand out edibles. Wasn't it LiveWell that had the problem at the fair? Remember? This was August 2014. They were sued by multiple plaintiffs in a class action lawsuit for distributing marijuana-infused chocolates. They settled out of court, which means they paid, right? Allegedly. I can't tell you for sure. I wouldn't know for sure, but isn't that what settled usually means? Somebody got paid? But anyway, they were accused of passing out tainted, not tainted, but, medicated edibles when people thought they weren't medicated. Then earlier this year, they had 60,000 of their plants put on hold because their growers were using potentially dangerous pesticides that had been banned for the use on marijuana. Not just, the federal government didn't have a list of this, so we didn't know if we could use it. But we're talking Colorado's Department of Agriculture had banned these pesticides that LiveWell had used. So Snoop, this is who you want to be growing and making your stuff? The people that were, dosing people without their knowledge? The people that were using pesticides and had their plants put on hold? I mean, I first heard about this situation from, is it named Clarissa, I think, who's with the Cannabis Consumers Coalition. I remember speaking to her in Denver about this before it even broke in the headlines. Now, they've moved to a new set of pesticides that have been certified, but in October, 2 marijuana users in Colorado announced a lawsuit against LiveWell over the use of potentially dangerous pesticides. Neither allege they got sickened, but each said they would not have inhaled the product if they had known it had been treated with Eagle 20, which is another one of these pesticides that people are hating. So this is where I worry about a backlash, is like, you got guys like Snoop Dogg or Bob Marley or whoever, the family of Bob Marley, that they have this space in the pantheon of marijuana, but it's a position they achieved through celebrity and art, and not necessarily for knowing a whole lot about the marijuana industry or marijuana reform. So I worry if you get a few high-profile situations like this where it can be shown, where you know, the opposition would say, see, there's the rapper Snoop Dogg the rapper, getting involved with the big marijuana company that got busted for pesticides and was dosing your kids at the county fair. I can see how these things can turn into moral panics. And folks, you do not want to suffer through a moral panic in this situation. It outweighs all the truth, facts, science, logic, and reason we can possibly muster. We've got to be very careful about how these businesses are developed from this point on. I know people will say, well, Russ, you supported Ohio 3. Yeah. And you know, looking at it, you can't always choose the people that are bringing legalization to you, can you? But once you got legalization, then we can be a little more discerning. Colorado's got the legalization. Let's make sure the legalization proceeds with our best foot forward. When we come back, you'll get my speech from last Thursday's Women Grow event in Columbus, Ohio, where I spoke to them about the success they achieved with Ohio Issue 3. That's right, some success. Stick around.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio. Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome. The cannabis community is a diverse set of people from all walks of life, conservative and liberal, black and white, straight and gay, rich and poor, and everyone in between. Learn more about the people we are freeing from adult marijuana prohibition in our Cannabis Community Chat. My speech from Columbus, Ohio at the Women Grow event last week.
Russ, I'll let you go, and then I'm going to ask you some questions if you don't mind.
No problem. Thank you very much. Give it up for Lissa here, and thank you for being here at the Women Grow event. My name is Russ Belville. I'm known as Radical Russ online. I am a talk radio host for CannabisRadio.com. I write for High Times. I write for Alternate, Huffington Post, and MarijuanaPolitics.com. And for the past 10 years, it's been my pleasure to be a marijuana reform activist and media personality and travel all around the country meeting people like you that are fighting at different levels for marijuana law reform. Now, this is my first time covering a marijuana election in Ohio, and I want to say congratulations for getting 35.9% of the vote for legalization. Yes! The day after, I was consoling people. There was tears. There was sadness. Hearts were broken. Business plans were crushed. It was the end. It was over. We lost almost 2-1. No, you won 1 out of 3. You just joined a very exclusive club. Only 6 states in the United States have ever voted on marijuana legalization. The 4 that have it now, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, and California and Nevada have voted on statewide legalization. There will be again in 2016. So you're now just the 7th state to have ever voted on statewide marijuana legalization. And of those 6 states that have voted on statewide legalization, only one of them passed it on their first try. That was Washington. That's right. Washington's I-502 passed on its first try with 55.7% of the vote in 2012 with no home grow and a per se DUID. So it wasn't the best. In fact, of the 4 states that have legalization right now, the worst legalization. They only legalized an ounce of weed and only a 1/4 ounce of concentrate as compared to the rest of the states that have legalized more than that. So only one state got it right the very first time. And this was a state that had medical marijuana for 14 years. And not just medical marijuana, but really loosey-goosey open medical marijuana with dispensaries on every street corner and lots of people with recommendations. Of the other states that have voted to pass marijuana legalization, they've all failed at least once their first time around. And 3 of them, California, Oregon, and Nevada, have failed twice. They've had 2 statewide votes to fail. Way back in 1972, California had its first opportunity to vote on statewide marijuana legalization. This was before decrim. This was before even Oregon had decrimmed in 1973. In 1972, while the Gallup polls were sitting at about 16% for marijuana legalization, California put Prop 19, it was also called Prop 19, on the 1972 ballot and got 33.6% of the vote. So, y'all got 3 points more than California did the first time they tried. Not bad. Oregon, when it first tried, was 1986. Right in the middle of Nancy Reagan and Just Say No. Oregon got 26.3%. The worst a statewide legalization has ever gotten. So you're ahead of Oregon, where they started. And then as we move forward into the 2000s, there were attempts to legalize marijuana in Alaska, Nevada, and Colorado. All failed. Nevada's first shot was 39%. Colorado's first shot was 41%. Nevada's second shot was 44%. Colorado's second shot was 44%. So you're really only 3 to 7 or 9 points away from where Colorado, Nevada, and the other one I just mentioned were in the 2000s, right? So Ohio has actually kind of made it to somewhere between 1993 and 2006. Yeah! All right. And I mentioned how California and Oregon had multiple failures. The second failure in California was Prop 19 in 2010. They were polling at 55 to 60% in the lead up to their election. And right before their election, Governor Schwarzenegger had an October surprise. Yeah, I am going to change the law and decriminalize marijuana so you cannot be arrested for it. I know, lousy Schwarzenegger, but he passed this decrim, and it kind of undercut some of the Prop 19 support. And Prop 19 ended up getting like 46%. But even that wasn't a loss because Prop 19 in California in 2010 reignited this national discussion about legalization. It forced the entire country to start thinking about legalization as a viable strategy. And with the polls coming out saying it could have passed and it was close to pass, that really lit a fire underneath the legislators and all of these politicians as well to understand that this is now a serious issue. They can't just laugh us off like Barack Obama did in 2009. I don't know what this says about the online community. Those tokers, those stoners. They can't laugh us off anymore. We're getting poll numbers. We're getting initiatives on the ballot. And in 2012, we succeeded finally. We finally legalized some amount of marijuana. Washington passed its I-502 with 55.7% of the vote. Colorado passed its Amendment 64 with 55.4% of the vote. And I was there in Oregon, where our Measure 80 got 46% of the vote. Y'all feel crushed here in Ohio, losing your vote? Imagine watching the state to the north of you passing at 10 points more than by a 10-point margin while you're failing by an 8-point margin. That just, oh man, that hurt for so long, knowing that 7 miles across the river, they're going to enjoy legal marijuana, and in Oregon, we're still going to be stuck with it. And it was also a crushing defeat because in 2012, while all of the major organizations were pouring time and money and attention into Washington and Colorado, Oregon was kind of off here like a bastard stepchild. Nobody would pay attention to us. And part of the reason why? Didn't like our business plan. We had a business plan that concentrated all the wholesale marijuana into one appointed board chosen by the growers who would set the prices. Didn't like the business plan. Failed. There's a lesson that could have been learned, huh? But we were left and abandoned and not given any money and not given any attention. And we ended up losing by 8 points. And it just felt like, God, if we'd only had some help, we could have made it. And after we lost, we were threatened in Oregon. We were actually threatened by the head of MPP in a note, in a memo that was sent to all the reformers. Don't you dare try to go for 2014. 2014 is an off-year election. You'll never win. 2014, there's going to be a lower depressed turnout. And if you lose in 2014, it's going to ruin everything for 2016. And if you lose in 2014, we won't help you in 2016. You'll be cut off. Well, Oregonians don't take kindly to that kind of stuff. So we went ahead. We found some funders outside of the national organizations. And we won in 2014, just 2 years after our heartbreaking electoral defeat. And not only did we win with the greatest percentage that has ever passed a statewide legalization, 56.1%. So, the point for Ohio would be, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And look at the positives. For one, you've learned how not to run a legalization campaign. Right? Now, I've gotten some notoriety in this state because, like, what the hell is this guy from Oregon coming in here telling us, and what does he care, and blah, 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 blah. I've been online, I've been called a shill for Responsible Ohio. If I had $1 for every time I've been called a shill for Responsible Ohio, I'd actually have the money that they accuse me of getting paid. But no, my stance is pretty simple. I'm an old, long-haired rock and roll musician. I know it doesn't show. I miss my hair. I had hair halfway down my back, playing rock music in the 90s. Horns, baby. So for me, when I was buying weed, it was from the guy. You guys know the guy, right? That was my monopoly. The guy. Because under Prohibition, you don't have any other choices. You don't get to go to Yelp or the phone book and find which dealer you're going to go to. You live under this monopoly of the dealer. The dealer who charges you $300 an ounce for something that cost him $25 to grow. The dealer who shows up with a short bag laden with pesticides 40 minutes late. So to me, I don't care who's making the money. Can I possess it? Can I smoke it? Can I grow it? Can I buy it? That's all I need. But that's not to say the economic side's not important. And I understand why people didn't like this particular initiative and fought hard against it. I totally understand that. And now that it's over, we can take that lesson and go, you know what? Come to think of it, this whole 10 grower thing, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And that's fine. We fight these hard battles, and we get angry about it. Oh, man, we bust heads and flame wars on Twitter and Facebook. But I hope everyone understands that you can disagree with someone's opinion vehemently. It doesn't mean you have to hate their guts. And we're really all on the same side, aren't we? My enemy is not someone who was against Issue 3. My enemy is not a rich person. My enemy is not a corporation. My enemy is a police officer who can still slap cuffs on me because I smell like weed. That's my enemy. That's what I want to fight. So as we move forward, let's learn the lessons we've learned from Issue 3. Let's reconnect, rebuild our networks, rebuild our friendships, rebuild our alliances to move forward. Put this defeat in the past and recognize the good that came from it. You just got over 1 million people in your state for the very first time to come out on an off-year election for a controversial, poorly worded ballot initiative with economic flaws headed by a cartoon mascot. And you got 1 out of 3 voters to accept that? Your next thing should fly like an eagle. Thank you. I'm Radical Russ. All right, folks, Radical Russ here for Cannabis Radio. That's the end of our coverage here for CannabisRadio.com. We're going to go offline, but I want to thank everyone listening on CannabisRadio.com. And remember, the Russ Belville Show comes to you live every weekday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on CannabisRadio.com. I'm Radical Russ. For everyone here in Columbus, Ohio, thanks for listening. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers. And we're clear.
Great time there at the Woodlands backyard. And if you could hear in the background, this bar had mini bowling lanes. There's the damnedest thing, these little tiny pins and bowling balls you could hold in your, it was like bocce ball almost, I guess. I'm not even sure what bocce ball is, to be honest. Always interesting giving a rousing speech when there's bowling in the background. Got to tell you, though, it's not even on my top 10 list of worst venues in the world. Not even close. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk, yeah, I know, more about Ohio. I got to work it out. What can I say?
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Get the latest updates on the Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking the Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Tell you one thing, it's tough being 14. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of tough things out in the streets today.
I've been around and tried everything.
There's a new drug called crack out there.
Been on my own for over a year now.
Crack's made from cocaine, but it's more addicting than cocaine. And some girls who get hooked on crack will walk a long way to get it.
One thing I really don't know about is tomorrow.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make them.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
So I have to talk a little bit more about Ohio, and I know there's a lot of folks out there that wish I would stop talking about Ohio. Get over it! You lost! Crying over spilt milk! And so forth. And the thing is I don't see that I lost anything. I saw that we all lost because prohibition continues in Ohio. I didn't lose anything. I live in Oregon. I live in Portland, Oregon. I live on the Green Mile in Portland, Oregon. I can walk 30 minutes in any direction and hit 4 or 5 legal pot shops. I didn't lose anything. We lost because marijuana is not legal. And just because 64% of the voters disagree with me on an issue, that doesn't lead me to say, oh, well, you know what? I was wrong. No, I just have failed to convince enough people I was right. Because I still believe I am right. And I still believe that ending marijuana prohibition is paramount. And it trumps any economic considerations. I can only imagine, we've got this Emancipation Proclamation we'd like you to sign, Mr. Lincoln. But after you sign it, there will be this system of sharecropping in which white landowners will make money on the backs of indentured servitude there, in a sense. So better not sign it. I mean, it is supposed to be the worst public policy decision since slavery, right? It is supposed to be the new Jim Crow, right? Would we not overturn slavery or Jim Crow because of the business plan? I digress. To me, I still feel I'm right, and I still feel that the continuance of marijuana prohibition leads to horrendous outcomes. And nobody for me could paint a more horrendous outcome for what would happen if a monopoly got involved with growing marijuana. Not the selling, that would be independent and competitive. In fact, the growing would be competitive among 10 entities, but, regardless, monopoly. What would be the terrible outcome of that? Let's see. It'd be legal. I could wake up, I could go to a pot shop, buy weed, go home and smoke it, and not have to worry about cops. Yeah, that'd be terrible. But anyway, supposedly something terrible was going to happen if this monopoly got power. If somehow Nick Lachey got more rich, then something terrible would happen. And I just want people to ask themselves if it would have been as terrible as what just happened in Greene, Ohio. Reporter Adam Faris writes on Cleveland.com that 2 men walked into a 27-year-old man's apartment and shot him 5 times in the chest in a drug deal involving a pound of marijuana, according to investigators' records and the man's girlfriend. Man happened, 27-year-old girlfriend Tia Gilbert and his daughter slept in the adjacent apartment. There's a man being accused of being a part of the robbery, and another man fatally shot the 27-year-old. Corey Siebel was his name. The girlfriend, Gilbert, said that the victim, Siebel, dealt marijuana, but not as a way to make money, but because he believed the drug was a better alternative to prescription drugs. He sold no other drugs, just weed seller. The girlfriend says, quote, he was just an old hippie. Well, he's 27. I don't know how old he is. This is no drug dealer. This was a guy who helped people get their medicine. He helped people with anxiety and other illnesses who didn't want their medicine to come from prescriptions, end quote. The victim, Siebel, mentored some of his regular customers. He also helped them change their diets, quit smoking cigarettes, or encourage them when no one else would, the girlfriend said. He's a caregiver. He would help people get what they needed. We had cancer patients, people with PTSD, anxiety. These are not just kids that wanted to get high and smoke weed. He put his life on the line and he helped them. End quote. Gilbert said that Siebel, the victim, became disillusioned with prescription drugs after spending a good portion of his childhood taking Adderall. As a teenager, he watched his father die of cancer while being treated with prescription drugs and other strong medication. Gilbert said, quote, I lost the love of my life over $3,600 and a stupid flower. That's why this should be legal. He shouldn't have to risk his life to do this. Shot 5 times over a deal with 2 men come over to the apartment to buy a pound of marijuana. A pound of marijuana. A pound of marijuana. Pulp Fiction style. Shoot him right dead in the chest over a pound of marijuana. Now, I know I'll already have people complaining, well, that wouldn't have been legal under this, and that couldn't have possibly been changed by the law, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know that. What I do know is that a pound of marijuana is worth shooting someone over because it's illegal. That's the incontrovertible fact in this story. Because marijuana is illegal, this 27-year-old man is slaughtered in his home over it. Now, you legalize an ounce of possession. You legalize over 1,000 shops where you can buy this stuff. You legalize the home licensed growing of 4 plants and possession of up to a half pound. And the relative worth and need for risk to acquire that plant decreases dramatically. This is not to say that in some post-legalization future, hell, even out here in Oregon, that we might not have home invasion robberies, people busting in and stealing weed. But you cannot deny that the prohibition of marijuana is what leads to that circumstance. And it was the prohibition of marijuana that was approved on Election Day a week ago in the state of Ohio. No matter how you want to slice it, if you're opposed to monopolies, it was the wrong plan. There'll be a better plan coming along. This one wasn't good enough. We can't enshrine this kind of crony capitalism into the Constitution. Please write that down on a nice piece of stationery and mail that to Tia Gilbert. Mail that to Tia Gilbert so she can read that at the funeral of Corey Siebel, the 27-year-old man who was just shot 5 times in the chest over a pound of marijuana. Gilbert says, quote, "We had planned to get married in 6 months, buy a farm, and grow our food. He loved his garden. He spent all summer out there with his daughter. It was something we all did as a family," end quote. Quote, "They took a father, a friend, and a husband, not just a drug dealer that had his neighbors worried. Maybe they would have talked to him. He'd have shown him his dirt bike or his garden. He'd have given them the shirt off his back if they'd asked." But because it's illegal, because there's no way this man could have gotten a home grow license. Now, I read the comments in this thing. There's 400 comments on this on Cleveland.com. Lots of them the typical internet troll level drug dealer deserved to die type comments. And you believe who's pulling your leg here, that he was with the patients and he was trying to help the people with pain, scare quote city, right? Lots of that in there. But let's take this girlfriend at her word and suppose this is a guy who was home growing marijuana in order to sell it at cost, make up his cost, to the people that needed medical marijuana. That's something that under the amendment that just failed, he'd have been able to do. And lots of people would have been able to do. And there would have been medical marijuana that would have come along with that, funded by a tax on the recreational pot shops, so that the people who needed the medical marijuana maybe not even have to deal with Mr. Siebel and his home grow. But even if they did, the risk, the danger that anybody would be under is significantly less under legalization. Nobody from the proposed monopoly was going to come over to your house and shoot you 5 times in the chest. But prohibition dealers will. And I know people get pissed at me when I talk like this, but you know what? When we said it was the new Jim Crow, when we said it was the worst policy since slavery, I actually believe that. I actually live my life as if that's true, because I do believe it's true. I believe the prohibition of marijuana erodes more of our liberties in a greater way than any other policy since slavery or Japanese internment. So I can't elevate. And the other thing that's bothering me lately is this notion that marijuana legalization is also supposed to solve all the other ills of this non-progressive society. That we're supposed to solve the problem of corporatization or big money in politics or big corporate, big box stores. We're supposed to solve that too. Let's not have it be too big and cut the little guy out. And also we're going to solve the problem of money in politics. We're not going to have that be a problem. And also we're going to fix racial disparities in economics, right? We're going to fix all that too. Look, I got in this to legalize marijuana. How does that happen? Do we end up legalizing marijuana? That's what I want to see happen. And when we legalize marijuana, I'm more than willing to put a lot of effort into fixing income inequality and money in politics and racism. Please, let's do those things. But to me, not solving it piece by piece, right? Let's solve the illegal marijuana part. Let's get it legal by virtually any means necessary. To me, the baseline at this point is Washington's I-502 and the medical marijuana laws on the East Coast. If they're no worse than those, we should be supporting them. We've already accepted those baselines. Those should be our floor at this point. We should get it as legal as possible, as quickly as possible, because I'm telling you, there is a backlash that's going to happen, a pendulum that's going to swing back. And maybe I'm the Chicken Little. Maybe I'm the one who's predicting gloom and doom. Don't worry, Russ, the Gallup polls at 58%. Everything's fine. And what I worry about is that people interpret these poll numbers based on what they think, how their frame works, right? Like, 90% of the people support medical marijuana. Yeah, but if a large proportion of those people, their frame of medical marijuana is dying cancer patient, AIDS patient, kid with epilepsy, yeah, that's why you're getting your 90% numbers. Bring them on down to Venice Beach and see some sign twirlers and a line of skateboarders getting their card for anxiety, and then poll them. Is this medical marijuana something you'd support? Bet you'd have a hard time pulling a majority. Anyway, that's all the time I got for Hour 1. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. Hour 2 is coming up next. Toker Talk Radio. You can dial in live at 971-533-7111. For everyone here at Rolla J Studios and CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
Young people everywhere are making a difference.
Special Olympics has changed my life so dramatically.
It's helped me a lot to be fearless, in the real world.
My friends I've made through Special Olympics are the best people I've ever met in my life.
I truly realize that what I'm doing is for a great cause.
And it's not about disabilities, but it's about celebrating their abilities.
I've made a difference. Now it's your turn to make a difference.
Get involved at SpecialOlympics.org.
I'm Talia. As the mother of 2 young children, there is nothing closer to my heart than the health of our babies. That's why I'm asking you to help put an end to premature birth. Each year, more than 15 million babies are born too soon, and more than 1 million will die. Visit facebook.com/World Prematurity Day to find out how you can make a difference in your community and around the world.
Tony Stewart wins the Cobalt Tools 400.
This is Tony Stewart here to tell you about a way veterans and service members can get on the fast track for well-deserved benefits. It's called eBenefits, a website created by VA and DoD that gives veterans, service members, and families instant access to more than 40 benefits and services. It's a way to serve those who have served us. To get started, just go to www.ebenefits.va.gov or just do a search for VA eBenefits.
Brought to you by the Department of Veterans Affairs.
There is a part of our world where toxic chemicals and carcinogens are leaching into our environment. It's the ground underneath every littered cigarette butt. Let's stop the toxic litter. Learn more at rethinkbutts.org. Brought to you by Legacy and Leave No Trace.
The Amazon's rainforest is being cut down so fast that by 2030, 55% of it could be completely wiped out. The Earth's forests can't speak up when they need help, but we can. Be the voice for those who have no voice. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
To end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, and the phone lines are open. Call me now. It's 971-533-7111. I got to tell you, I love doing a live radio show because my listeners oftentimes help me to bring you what Paul Harvey would call the rest of the story. So we did this story. I just ranted on this Corey Siebel story in Ohio. This young man, 27 years old, gunned down in his home by two men who had come over to buy a pound of marijuana. Shot him 5 times in the chest. Over a pound of weed and $3,600. And the story focused on the girlfriend, Tia Gilbert, talking about how he was supplying medicine to the sick and he only sold weed. He didn't sell anything else and so forth. So I go on the rant, tell the story. I get done with the break here. I go to the chat room. Jess in our chat room says, go check out this guy's last Facebook post. Oh, okay. So I click over to Facebook, and here it is. Corey Siebel, November 3rd. This was 6:27 a.m., so the morning of the election a week ago. Support your local economy and stop giving power to massive corporate entities. Vote no on issue 3. Wow. So a black market marijuana grower was against issue 3, and the following week got shot and killed in a prohibition-related deal. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our maximum daily allowance of irony. Wow. Wow. Just, okay. All right. I better stop. I better stop this line for now because, wow, the irony in that is just unbelievable. Or not, I guess, depending on how you look at things. But coming up in this hour, I want to talk about some other stories in the marijuana news. Of course, you've got now the Sean Parker initiative that's happening in California. And now CCHI is out. The Jack Herer initiative is out. And if anything, you could almost say that these two things are the opposite of each other as far as legalization goes, as far as who's behind them. the billionaire initiative versus the complete grassroots initiative. I mean, CCHI is as grassroots as it gets. And in between, we had all sorts of other different levels of the legalization teams out there, of lawyers, of activists, reform organizations. It's like 6, 7, something like that. So we'll be talking about that, about what's happening now for California. We talked about that Massachusetts story yesterday where Boston.com brings up how there's the grassroots group, Bay State Repeal, and then there's the Marijuana Policy Project group, the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, or CRIMLA. So there's a dynamic going on in Massachusetts that also, frankly, is going on in Arizona. There's a grassroots group there versus an MPP CRIMLA there as well. There was the same thing going on in Maine, Regulate Maine and MPP's CRIMLA in Maine, but MPP has folded their CRIMLA. Yes, make sure you fold your CRIMLA, ladies and gentlemen. Folded their CRIMLA and are now working on the Regulate Maine initiative. They've actually got behind the grassroots initiative, but Maine's a special place, folks. That's like Maine's one of them places where it's like, wait, it's not legal yet, really? That's a surprise. Very weed friendly kind of a place, so we'll see how that works. Michigan, I think, if I remember correctly, there's 3 groups in Michigan. I don't think any of them are an MPP group. I think they're all 3 grassroots groups, but I could be wrong. So this, I mean, we worry about this from the perspective of dividing our resources and dividing the electorate and wasting time and money and effort where it doesn't need to be wasted. And that's what's been predicted, is that we've gone from, should we legalize marijuana to how are we going to legalize marijuana? And now I think we run the danger here of our electorate splintering into all these different groups that'll support different levels. Like, I'm at the level where I'll support anything that ends arrests and helps patients and doesn't make life worse for stoners. I'm all for that, but we're going to have different levels as this continues.
Don't touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
We've also got some good news coming up for veterans and their access to medical marijuana. And coming up at the 20 after break, Electric Bob will be calling in. First time I've talked to Bob since our Arizona adventure. We switched off of daylight savings time and it messed him up because Arizona doesn't do that. So he called in an hour earlier. It's like, dude, why are you calling in so early? Oh yeah, stupid daylight savings. Stick around. More Russ Belville Show coming up after this.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement. He went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. He moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, he stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system, funded by over 1 million contributions, tackling climate change to create clean energy jobs, fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Hey, I'm Herb Thrasher, host of the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour, live every Friday night at 8 Pacific. Tune in for 2 hours of metal marijuana mayhem featuring exclusive interviews with the latest bands, highlights of live shows, and the latest in marijuana news. It's the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour, Friday nights at 8 p.m. at 420 Radio, or catch the replay on Saturday nights.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Radical Russ here. The Toker Talk radio segment of the Russ Belville Show. Hour 2, that means our phone lines are open live at 971-533-7111. This is music from Lugmyrden. It's called Hashishan Dreams. That's right, Hashishan Dreams. This is some of our Electric Tuesday music we play on the Russ Belville Show. That's right, we got music on the show, at least for now. I'm not sure if it'll stay. Licensing stuff, folks. We got to figure out all this licensing stuff. But coming up at 20 after, we got Electric Bob calling in, and he's going to bring us some more Electric Tuesday music. So stay tuned for that. Get your 420 groove on. Got some good news coming out of the United States Senate. The Senate has approved funding that allows veterans to access medical marijuana. The Senate today passed the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Bill, which includes language to allow Veterans Administration doctors to recommend medical marijuana to their patients in states where medical marijuana is legal. Yes. So the language was included as an amendment in the Senate Appropriations Committee last May. And this access amendment was sponsored by Republican Senator Steve Daines of Montana and Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon. That's better. That's right, my senator sponsored this. It passed the committee with an 18-12 bipartisan vote. It will be now negotiated with the House version as part of the omnibus spending bill. So here we are, the day before Veterans Day. That's right, Veterans Day is tomorrow, so I really shouldn't have had to do a show anyway, right? But tomorrow's Veterans Day, and we get this currently because the VA is prohibited from completing any of the medical marijuana forms in the legal medical marijuana states. This amendment would allow them to recommend medical marijuana. And this would be so huge for our veterans who are getting their care through the VA, and so many of them that are dealing with chronic pain issues, traumatic brain injury issues, post-traumatic syndromes, all of these things that can be helped by this. Kudos to our Senate for approving this amendment. And as it moves back to the House for negotiations, I want to encourage all of you to get in touch with your representative. Do you know who your representative is? Do you? My representative is Earl Blumenauer. My senator is Jeff Merkley, and my other senator is Ron Wyden. You should know those three names. You should know your two senators and your one federal representative. Now, speaking of your federal representatives, interesting story, again, about Ohio. This one's in the Christian Science Monitor. How Ohio's marijuana vote could tip the federal decriminalization bid. And the theory, the gist of this article is, does this near 2-to-1 loss for Ohio Issue 3 influence marijuana policy at the federal level? Now, everything you're hearing out of MPP, DPA, other people that have been releasing press releases on this is an outlier. It was a kooky election. Just, the monopoly thing. Nobody liked the monopoly thing. It was weird. This has no effect whatsoever moving forward on legalization. And anyway, it's just a weird outlier. Pay no attention to this electoral drubbing over here. On the contrary, these writers for Christian Science Monitor, actually writer Jordan Ragusa, asked the question, could the defeat of Ohio's Issue 3 influence marijuana policy at the federal level? For example, efforts to eliminate federal felony charges for non-medical marijuana, or to influence related questions like DEA funding, drug sentencing guidelines, and so forth. And the author theorizes that, yeah, big loss in Ohio certainly could affect those chances. It goes back to an article that Dan Smith, Josh Huder, and the author wrote in American Politics Research back in 2011. And this wasn't about marijuana in particular, but it was whether or not the passage or failure of statewide ballot measures affect how members of Congress vote. In other words, do state ballot measures influence policy outcomes at the federal level? And the theory behind this is that much more so than polls, an election allows a politician to drill down to the district by district level, to know precinct by precinct, to know exactly what their constituents think about a particular issue. And if you know where your district is, and you can find out how they voted on something, well, then you want to be on that side so you get reelected in your district. So they decided to take a look at this. They decided to, kind of do a little bit of research. And so they had, let's see how they tested it. We took the results of statewide ballot measures on 3 issues: regulating campaign finance, raising the minimum wage, and banning same-sex marriage, and compared that to how lawmakers voted on those issues. Okay? So find the states that passed those 3 things, having nothing to do with weed. Find how they voted on those things, and then did that affect the federal votes following a win or a loss? And what they found is that according to their article, our hypothesis appears to be partly correct. Members of the House do vote in ways that appear to be influenced by how their constituents voted on ballot measures, but that's not true for senators. And yeah, senators, you're being voted on by the whole state. And you only got to run for election every 6 years. So it wouldn't have as much of an influence. But you're running every 2 years in a very localized district, and your district votes overwhelmingly against marijuana legalization. That could affect how you're going to vote on the next Hinchy-Rohrabacher thing, or whatever marijuana banking thing, or things that have to make it through the House of Representatives. He concludes by saying, Ohio's decision on marijuana, in other words, has national implications. National implications. And they pointed out, they did get the people that pointed out that said, hey, look, it was a monopoly thing. This was his response to the monopoly thing. I still think Ohio's congressional delegation will look at Issue 3's defeat as a piece of information when they're trying to decide what their constituents want. I maintain that the vast majority of votes for or against Issue 3 were ultimately about marijuana legalization. Indeed, it seems unlikely to me that 36% voted in favor of monopolies. Yeah.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
But here's the killer point. If you're a lawmaker trying to decide where your constituents stand, it's telling that pro-legalization voters were persuaded to vote against that issue because of something unrelated to legalization. I think that gives lawmakers some good information how much pro-legalization constituents care about the issue. Absolutely.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping ganjapreneurs grow.
If you're an adult who enjoys a good beer, there's a similar product you might want to know about. One without all the calories and serious health problems. Less toxic so it doesn't cause hangovers or overdose deaths, and it's not linked to violence or reckless behavior. Marijuana, less harmful than alcohol, and time to treat it that way. For more information, visit marijuanaissafer.org.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabis 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com, with years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R spells out their full-service insurance services, ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your 420 break. 420 out here in the Pacific time zone. It might be 5:20 where you're at, depending on whether your state has daylight savings time or not. Welcome back. It's Electric Bob on the show. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good. Yeah, Arizona does not observe any daylight savings time, so I always get mixed up at this time of year.
So you're back, 5:20 now? Your time?
5:20.
All right, so you're back in the mountain time zone. So you've left us. You've left us for this brief period of time, but that's okay. No matter what time of day it is, it's hot in Arizona. Hey, it was a great time down there in Arizona, though, for that Southwest Cannabis Conference, and I got to give you a big shout out and thumbs up for all the work you did while we were down there.
No problem, man. I had a freaking blast.
Yeah, it was. How about that house we were all staying in there? We did karaoke. It had its own house karaoke system, for God's sake.
Had its own theater room.
I never did use that theater room.
And I never used it either, unfortunately.
But we did get to watch World Cup rugby semifinals with an Australian.
Yes, that was fun. He was a nice guy.
You're always going to get a better grasp of the sport watching it with someone for whom it's like one of their native type sports. I love that kind of stuff. It was a great time. So how's everything going with the record label?
Everything's doing great, man. Doing real well. I'm going to next month or this month, if depending on money circumstances, I found someone who I can get shirts printed up for pretty cheap.
Very cool. And tell folks the name of the label and how they can find out more about you.
I have two record labels. One of them is Dark Till Dawn Records. You can find us on SoundCloud. It's you can just type in Google Dark Till TIL, not TILL Records, and you can type us in Google and find us. And I run another one called Broken Souls Recordings, which you can also find. You can find us on SoundCloud, Bandcamp. I'm working to get us on iTunes and Beatport and Juno Download and all that good stuff.
Right on. So Dark Till Dawn and Broken Souls. Those are the two things you need to be looking up.
And it's SOLES.
Right.
SOULS.
Like the soles of your shoes.
Yes.
Right on, man. All right. So Bob, tell us about this tune we got coming up. And is this on one of your labels?
No, this is off of Warp Recordings. This is Boards of Canada. It's off their 2006 record. It's very, very mellow, very like nostalgic sounding. It's just one of these songs that I love listening to and rolling up a fat one and lighting it up, just listening to some tunes.
All right, well, let's do that right now. It's called Satellite Anthem Icarus. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And it's The Boards of Canada.
Yes.
Right on.
They're out of Ireland.
They're out of Ireland. They're called Boards of Canada?
It's two brothers out of Ireland.
That's like Boston being from Schenectady and Kansas being from Arkansas. I mean, that ain't right. You can't do that. Chicago had to be from Chicago, didn't they? I don't know.
They could have been from Montana.
Thanks, Bob. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week, Russ.